I swear to God, if you show up at my house again, I'll have you arrested. Sarah screamed into the phone before hanging up. Her hands were shaking. I'd never seen my wife this rattled before. Who was that? I asked, standing in the doorway of our bedroom, coffee mug in hand, watching her pace frantically. Sarah jumped, nearly dropping her phone. Jesus, Ryan, how long have you been standing there? Long enough to hear you threatening someone with arrest. I took a sip of my coffee, studying her face. Something wasn't right. So, who was it? Just work stuff. She brushed past me, her shoulder bumping mine hard enough to make my coffee slosh over the rim. Some vendor who won't take no for an answer. I watched her disappear down the hallway, her excuse hanging in the air like a bad smell. In the 15 years I'd been married to Sarah Matthews, I'd become fluent in her lies. This one reeked. I'm Ryan Matthews, 38, senior marketing executive at Wilson & Hayes in Chicago. We lived in the affluent North Shore suburbs, in a house with more bathrooms than people. The American dream, right? Except lately, my dream had been feeling more like someone else's production, and I was just the guy who showed up to read the lines. Sarah and I had met in college. She was the ambitious pre-law student with razor-sharp wit and legs that made men walk into walls. I was the easygoing marketing major who somehow made her laugh. We got married right after graduation, bought the starter home, then the forever home. No kids. Sarah's career as a corporate attorney always seemed to take precedence, and honestly, I never pushed. Our life looked perfect on Instagram, but perfect things have a way of developing hairline fractures you don't notice until the whole thing shatters in your hands. The first crack appeared 3 months ago when Sarah started working late. Classic, I know, but what followed was anything but standard. I set my coffee down and went to my home office, closing the door quietly. I didn't have to be at work for another 2 hours, but suddenly I needed to do something I'd been putting off. I logged into our cell phone account. Sarah and I shared a family plan, and as the primary account holder, I could see all the call records. I scrolled through her recent calls, and there it was. A number I didn't recognize, calling multiple times a day for weeks, including right before her outburst this morning. I wrote down the number, then opened my laptop and searched it. Nothing useful came up, but my gut was churning. This wasn't about work. I'm heading out early, Sarah called from downstairs. Dinner with clients tonight, don't wait up. Have fun, I replied, the words tasting bitter. The front door closed, and I heard her BMW roar to life and disappear down our tree-lined street. I stared at the number on my notepad, tapping my pen against the desk. Then I picked up my phone and dialed it. It rang 3 times before a man answered, his voice gravelly and tired. Yeah? I froze for a second, then cleared my throat. Hey, this is Ryan Matthews. The line went completely silent. Then, Sarah's husband? My stomach dropped. Yeah, who's this? Another pause. I think we should meet. His name was Derek Lawson, and we met at a dive bar in a part of Chicago I hadn't visited in years. He looked nothing like I expected. Early 40s, heavy set, with thinning hair, and a face that spoke of hard living. Not the type of guy I'd picture Sarah with at all. Thanks for meeting me, I said, sliding into the booth across from him. The vinyl seat was cracked, leaking yellowed foam. Didn't think I had much choice. He took a long pull from his beer. Figured this was coming eventually. So you and my wife... I couldn't even finish the sentence. It hung in the air between us, incomplete but understood. Derek barked out a laugh. Me and Sarah? God, no. Is that what you think this is? He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. This is so much worse, man. The waitress brought my beer, and I took a grateful swig. I'm listening. I'm a private investigator, he said. Ex-cop. Your wife hired me 6 months ago. I frowned. To do what? To dig up dirt on you. Derek leaned forward. She was building a case for divorce, wanted to make sure she had leverage before filing. Standard playbook for a lawyer like her. The room seemed to tilt slightly. There's no dirt to dig up. I haven't done anything. Derek shrugged. That's what I found out. You're boring as hell, Matthews. No affairs, no gambling, no secret families. You don't even look at porn enough to be interesting. I should have felt relieved, but instead my chest tightened. So why the threatening phone call this morning? Derek's face darkened. Because I found something else while I was looking into your finances. Something about your wife. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope, sliding it across the table. 3 weeks ago, I was cross-checking your bank records. Standard procedure. But I found something weird. Your wife has a separate account you don't know about. A big one. I opened the envelope with unsteady hands. Inside were bank statements showing an account in Sarah's maiden name with a balance of over 2.4 million. That's not all, Derek continued. That money? It's coming from Westbrook Pharmaceuticals. Monthly payments of $50,000 for the past 4 years. That doesn't make sense, I said, flipping through the pages. Sarah's firm doesn't represent Westbrook. No, they don't. But your company's biggest client, Harmon Healthcare, is currently suing Westbrook for patent infringement, a lawsuit your wife's firm is defending against. The implications hit me like a physical blow. She's selling information, corporate espionage. Derek nodded grimly. Bingo. Your wife's been playing both sides, feeding Westbrook insider information from Harmon's marketing strategies. Strategies you develop. Jesus Christ. My career, my reputation, everything I'd built could be destroyed, and Sarah had used me as her unwitting source. I confronted her yesterday, told her I couldn't ignore this. That's why she was threatening me. Derek finished his beer. Look, I'm sorry, I didn't sign up to ruin anyone's life, but this is serious criminal stuff. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why not go to the police? Because you're as much a victim as anyone, he said, and because I think you deserve the chance to handle this your way before everything explodes. I stared at the evidence in my hands, my mind racing. I need to think. Derek slid a business card across the table. Take your time, but not too much. This kind of thing has a way of coming out. As I stood to leave, he grabbed my wrist. One more thing, he said, his voice lower. Your wife has a storage unit, paid for in cash, not connected to either of your names. I followed her there twice last month. My heart stuttered. What's in it? Don't know, but people don't rent secret storage units for Christmas decorations. He released my arm. Might be worth checking out. Unit 217 at Lakeside Storage on Dahmen. I sat in my car outside Lakeside Storage for nearly an hour, debating whether to go in. Part of me didn't want to know what other secrets Sarah was keeping, but I'd come too far to back out now. The facility was the type with exterior units, each with its own roll-up door. No fancy security, just a keypad at the entrance gate. I waited until someone punched in their code, then tailgated through before the gate closed. Unit 217 was in the back corner, partially hidden by a large dumpster. I tried the handle. Locked, of course. I hadn't really expected it to be open, but I also hadn't thought through how I'd get in. I was about to leave when I noticed something. The unit next to Sarah's, 219, had its door open a few inches. Inside, an elderly man was sorting through boxes. Excuse me, I called, approaching him. I hate to bother you, but I've got a bit of a situation. The man looked up, squinting at me through thick glasses. What kind of situation? I pointed to 217. That's my unit, but my wife has the key. She's out of town and I need to grab some camping gear for a trip this weekend. Management can let you in, he suggested. I tried, I lied smoothly. They need both names on the paperwork, and apparently she only put hers. I just need to grab one thing. It would save me driving all the way home. He studied me for a moment, then shrugged. I've got some tools that might help, but this isn't my business if you're breaking in somewhere you shouldn't be. 5 minutes later, with the help of the old man's crowbar, I had popped the lock on Unit 217. I thanked him, promised to replace the lock before leaving, and waited until he returned to his unit before pulling up the door. The storage space was small but meticulously organized. Typical Sarah. Plastic bins were stacked along one wall, each labeled in her precise handwriting. Tax documents, case files, personal. Nothing suspicious yet. Then I saw it. A sleek metal safe in the back corner, about the size of a mini fridge. Next to it was a small desk with a laptop and a file box labeled WB, Westbrook. I moved to the desk first, opening the file box. Inside were folders with dates going back 4 years, each containing what looked like marketing strategies, product development timelines, and sales projections. My work passed to our competitor. The laptop was password protected, but I knew Sarah. I tried her mother's maiden name plus her birth year. Nothing. Her college mascot plus graduation date. Nothing. Then I tried my name plus our anniversary. The screen unlocked. I felt a strange mix of emotions, satisfaction at guessing her password, bitterness that she'd use our relationship as her security key while simultaneously betraying me. The laptop contained even more damning evidence. Emails between Sarah and someone named James Harrington at Westbrook, detailing what information they wanted, how much they'd pay, and how to route the money to avoid detection. There were also recordings, audio files of meetings I'd had with my team, discussions about Harmon's marketing strategies that I'd mentioned to Sarah in passing. She'd recorded them all. But what really made my blood run cold was a folder labeled Ryan. Inside were photos of me, at work, meeting with colleagues, even out at lunch with my assistant Melissa. There were also background checks on my friends, financial analyses of my accounts, and detailed notes about my habits and routines. Sarah wasn't just spying on my company, she was spying on me. I copied everything onto a flash drive I kept in my wallet, then carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Before leaving, I pulled out my phone and took photos of the unit, the safe, and the WB file box. Evidence. Outside, I replaced the lock with a new one I'd bought at the office supply store next door. Same brand, virtually identical. Sarah would never know I'd been there. As I drove away, I called Derek. "She's been recording me," I said when he answered. "Tracking me. This goes deeper than just selling information." "Shit," he muttered. "That's next level. What are you going to do?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "I'm going to make sure she loses everything, just like she planned for me." I drove around the city for hours, the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. Rain began to fall, streaking across my windshield like tears. 15 years of marriage, and I didn't know my wife at all. When I finally headed home, it was past midnight. Sarah's car was in the driveway and lights were on downstairs. I sat in my car watching the house, our house, feeling like a stranger. I tucked the flash drive into my jacket and walked in. Sarah was in the kitchen, still in her work clothes, nursing a glass of red wine. She looked up when I entered, her expression carefully neutral. "You're home late," she said. "So are you. How was the client dinner?" She gave a practiced smile. "Productive. We closed the Henderson deal." I nodded, heart pounding in my chest. "That's good. Any other deals I should know about?" Something flickered in her eyes. Caution. "What do you mean?" I walked to the liquor cabinet and poured myself a whiskey, taking my time. "I met with Derek Lawson today." The sound of Sarah's wine glass hitting the counter was sharp in the silence. When I turned around, her face had drained of color. "Why would you do that?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because my wife was threatening someone on the phone, and I wanted to know why." I took a sip of whiskey, letting it burn. Imagine my surprise when I found out it wasn't about an affair. "Ryan, I can explain." "Can you?" I pulled out the envelope and dropped it on the island between us. "Can you explain $2.5 million? Can you explain selling out my company, using information I brought home?" "You don't understand the pressure I've been under," she said, her voice hardening. "My firm expected—" "Don't!" I cut her off. "Don't you dare make this about your career. This is about breaking the law. This is about betraying me." Sarah's eyes narrowed, calculating. "What did Derek tell you exactly?" "Enough." I didn't mention the storage unit or the flash drive. Those were my aces. "And you believe him? Some washed-up ex-cop over your wife?" I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "Ex-cop with evidence, Sarah. Bank statements, money trails. I've seen it all." She moved toward me, her demeanor shifting subtly. The angry defensiveness melted into something softer, more vulnerable, a tactic I'd seen her use in court. "Ryan," she said, placing her hand on my arm, "I know how this looks, but it's complicated. I got caught up in something I couldn't control. I need you to trust me right now." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. Even now, knowing what I knew, I could feel the pull of her. 15 years of loving someone doesn't disappear in a day, no matter how badly they betrayed you. For a moment, I hesitated. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe. Then I remembered the photos of me in her secret files, the recordings, the detailed documentation of my daily routines. This wasn't just business. This was calculated. I stepped back, breaking her touch. "What's in the storage unit, Sarah?" Her expression froze. "What storage unit?" "Unit 217, Lakeside Storage." I watched her face carefully. "What's in the safe?" The blood drained from her face so rapidly I thought she might faint. "You've been following me?" "No, Sarah. That's your specialty, remember? The photos in the Ryan folder made that clear." She backed away, her mask completely slipping now. "You broke into my storage unit? That's private property. And recording your husband's business meetings is what exactly? A hobby? You had no right." No, you had no right. I slammed my glass down, whiskey splashing onto the counter. You were planning to destroy me, to use me for information and then throw me away when you were done. Sarah's eyes darted around the room as if looking for an escape. Then abruptly, her shoulders sagged. You don't understand what you're involved in, Ryan. These people, they're dangerous. What people? Westbrook? Your friend James Harrington? She flinched at the name. How do you know about James? I know everything, Sarah. Your secret account, the payments, the information you've been selling. I even know how you plan to frame me if things went south. I never... Stop lying. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I have copies of everything, including your little insurance recordings. Fear flickered across her face, quickly replaced by something harder. What are you going to do? She asked, eyes darting to the envelope. I leaned against the counter. I haven't decided yet, but here's what's going to happen right now. You're going to tell me everything. How it started, who approached who, all of it. And if I sense you're lying even a little bit, I'm calling both our companies tonight. Sarah's face crumpled, then reassembled itself into something calculating. She'd always been good at adapting. Fine, she said, reaching for her wine. It started 4 years ago. The truth, when it finally came out, was worse than I imagined. Westbrook had approached her, not the other way around. They'd done their homework, identified her connection to me, and made an offer she could have easily refused. But she hadn't, because the money was too good, and, in her words, it seemed harmless at first. It wasn't just my company's information she was selling. She'd leveraged her position to access documents from other attorneys' cases, building a network of corporate secrets that made her increasingly valuable to Westbrook and increasingly trapped. The recordings were Harrington's idea, she admitted, curled into the corner of our sofa, as far from me as possible. He said we needed insurance in case anyone ever found out. Insurance against me, I clarified. She looked away. Against anyone who might expose the arrangement, including you. What about the photos? The surveillance? Was that part of your arrangement too? Sarah hesitated. Yes and no. Harrington wanted information about your movements, your contacts, but the detailed tracking, that was my idea. Why? What could you possibly gain from knowing where I had lunch? She met my eyes for the first time in hours. Because I needed to know if you suspected anything, if you were meeting with anyone who might know about us. And because what? Because I was afraid you were having an affair. The irony of her statement hung in the air between us. I stared at her, incredulous. You thought I was cheating while you were committing corporate espionage. Your assistant, Melissa? You spent a lot of time with her. Late nights, lunch meetings, I got paranoid. I laughed bitterly. So let me get this straight. You've been selling my company's secrets for years, planning a divorce to protect yourself, spying on me, and you were worried about my loyalty? Sarah looked down at her hands. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like projection or justification. Pick your psychological defense mechanism. Why not just divorce me? I asked after a long silence. If you were so unhappy with our life? Sarah looked genuinely surprised. I wasn't unhappy, Ryan. I love our life. Just not me. That's not fair. I laughed bitterly. Not fair? You were planning to divorce me. You hired someone to investigate me. That was just insurance, she said weakly. A contingency plan. For what? For if you found out about Westbrook. She looked down at her hands. I know how righteous you can be. I was afraid you'd turn me in. The realization was like ice water in my veins. So the divorce investigation wasn't because you wanted to leave? It was to control me if I discovered your crimes. Sarah didn't answer. She didn't need to. You know what's funny? I said, breaking the silence. Derek couldn't find any dirt on me because there isn't any. I've been faithful to you every single day of our marriage. I've supported your career, your ambitions, everything. And all this time, you've been the one living a double life. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered, but it did. And now we're here. I stood up, suddenly needing distance. I'm going to bed, in the guest room. Lock up when you're done with your wine. That's it? She called after me. You're not going to tell me what you're planning? I paused in the doorway. No, Sarah, I'm not. How does it feel to be on the other side of secrets? I barely slept. By dawn, I was at my computer, formulating a plan. I hadn't reached my position at Wilson & Hayes by being indecisive, and I wasn't about to start now. Sarah had underestimated me, thinking I'd either fall apart or lash out immediately. She'd forgotten what I did for a living. Strategy was my specialty. I made 3 calls before 7 a.m. The first was to my company's legal counsel, requesting an urgent meeting. The second was to a security firm specialized in corporate espionage. The third was to a divorce attorney who had a reputation for being both discreet and ruthless. But there was one more call I needed to make, one I'd been avoiding. I picked up my phone and dialed my father. Robert Matthews answered on the second ring, his voice sharp despite the early hour. "Ryan, everything okay? You never call this early." "Not really, Dad. I need your advice." My father had been a federal prosecutor for 30 years before retiring. If anyone knew how to handle this situation legally, it was him. I laid out the basics, keeping emotion out of it. When I finished, the line was silent for so long, I thought we'd been disconnected. "Dad? I'm here." His voice was grim. "This is serious, son. Corporate espionage carries heavy penalties, but so does breaking into a storage unit, no matter whose name is on it. I know. You need to be careful about how you proceed. If your wife is as well connected as you say, she could make this very messy for you, even with the evidence you have." "What would you do?" I asked. He sighed heavily. "Honestly, I'd make sure I had copies of everything somewhere secure. Then I'd confront her with just enough information to get her to admit to everything, but not enough to let her know what you really have. Record the conversation legally. Illinois is a 2-party consent state, so you'll need her permission. Then take everything to the FBI's white-collar crime division. And if she won't agree to be recorded, then you need leverage, something she wants badly enough to cooperate." After hanging up, I thought about what my father had said. Leverage. I already had the evidence, but I needed something more. Something that would make Sarah cooperate without destroying both our lives in the process. Then it hit me. Sarah's biggest fear wasn't jail or financial ruin. It was public humiliation, loss of status, being seen as a failure. I showered, dressed in my best suit, and went downstairs. Sarah was in the kitchen again, looking exhausted but composed in her workout clothes, preparing a smoothie. "We need to talk," she said when she saw me. "No, we don't," I replied, pouring coffee into a travel mug. "Not yet. I have meetings all day." "Ryan, please, we can figure this out." I studied her. Even now, she was beautiful. Even now, a part of me wanted to believe we could salvage something. But that part was being overwhelmed by the knowledge that she'd been ready to destroy me to save herself. "I'm not turning you in," I said finally. "At least not today." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you. I'll make this right, I promise." "That's not possible," I said. "But here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Westbrook today and end it. You're going to tell them you can't continue. Then you're going to document everything. Dates, information shared, payments received, names of contacts, everything." "They'll come after me," she protested. "They could ruin me." "I know." I took a sip of my coffee. "That's why you're also going to transfer every penny of that money to a new account today. Consider it an insurance policy." Her eyes narrowed. "Against what?" "Against them. Against you." I headed for the door. "If you do exactly as I've asked, I'll meet you back here tonight at 8. If you don't, I'll know, and my next call will be to the FBI." "You wouldn't." I looked her straight in the eyes. "The woman I married wouldn't sell corporate secrets, yet here we are. We're both capable of more than we thought." My first meeting was with Marcus Chen, Wilson and Hayes' general counsel. His office overlooked the Chicago River, the view impressive but wasted on a man who rarely looked up from his documents. "This is an extremely serious situation, Ryan," Marcus said after I'd laid out the bare facts, omitting Sarah's name for now. "If what you're saying is true, Harmon could have grounds to sue us for breach of contract at minimum." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm here. I want to get ahead of this. Protect the company as much as possible. You understand I'll have to take this to the partners." "I do, but I'd like 24 hours first." Marcus frowned. "Why?" "Because I believe I can identify the source of the leak and secure evidence of Westbrook's involvement. That gives us leverage. Without it, it's just our word against theirs." After some back and forth, Marcus reluctantly agreed. 24 hours, Ryan. Not a minute more." As I was leaving his office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Need to talk ASAP. Important. Melissa." I frowned. My assistant never texted from an unknown number. I stepped into an empty conference room and called her office line. "Ryan, thank God," she answered, her voice hushed. "Someone's been asking questions about you." My grip tightened on the phone. What kind of questions? About your schedule? Your clients, especially Harmon. A man came by claiming to be from their corporate office, but his card didn't match any of our contacts there. Did you tell him anything? Of course not, but he was insistent. When I refused, he said he'd come back with proper authorization. What did he look like? Tall, silver hair, expensive suit? Very smooth talker. Harrington. It had to be. My confrontation with Sarah must have set things in motion faster than I expected. Melissa, listen carefully. If he comes back, direct him to Marcus Chen. Don't tell him anything about me or my schedule, and use this number to contact me for the next couple of days, not my office line. Ryan, what's going on? Should I be worried? I hesitated. Melissa had been my assistant for 5 years. I trusted her. I can't explain right now, but yes, be careful. And Melissa, if anyone from Westbrook Pharmaceuticals contacts you, don't respond. Just document everything and tell me immediately. After hanging up, I texted Derek. Westbrook moving faster than expected. Making contact at my office. Need to accelerate timeline. His response was immediate. On it. Backup plan ready when you are. My second meeting was with the security firm, where I outlined what we'd need. Documentation of Sarah's communications with Westbrook, traces of data transfers, and witness statements if possible. They were professionals, asking pointed questions without judgment. And your wife doesn't know you're doing this? The lead investigator asked. No, and she can't find out. He nodded. We'll be discreet, but understand, once we start digging, we can't control what we'll find. I'm counting on that, I said. I had just finished briefing them when my phone buzzed again. A text from Sarah. It's done. Called Westbrook. Harrington was furious. Threatened me. Said he knows you're involved now. I frowned. How would Harrington know I was aware of the arrangement? Unless Sarah had told him? This could be a trap, a way to force my hand. I texted back. Good. Start the documentation. All of it. And the money transfer. Her response came quickly. Already working on it. But Ryan, be careful. Harrington mentioned your office. Said he'd handle it himself. So that explained Melissa's visitor. Harrington was trying to get ahead of me. Maybe building his own case that I was involved all along. I needed to move faster. The divorce attorney was my last scheduled meeting. Her office was smaller but more elegantly appointed than Marcus's, with comfortable chairs and soft lighting designed to put clients at ease while they dismantled their lives. Illinois is a no-fault state, she explained after hearing my situation. But the financial misconduct could be relevant to the division of assets, especially if it's tied to criminal activity. I don't care about the money, I said. I care about making sure she can't hurt me or my company any further. Everyone says they don't care about the money, she replied with a faint smile. Until they do, let's protect your interests now, and you can decide about being generous later. I left her office with a preliminary strategy and a familiar gnawing in my stomach. This was really happening. I was dismantling my marriage, my life, piece by methodical piece. When I got back to the office, my assistant Melissa handed me a stack of messages. You've been popular today, she said. Your wife called 3 times, and someone from Westbrook Pharmaceuticals wants to discuss a potential opportunity. My blood ran cold. Westbrook called here? Directly? Melissa nodded. Is everything okay, Ryan? You look pale. I'm fine, just surprised. I forced a smile. If Westbrook calls again, tell them I'm not interested. And if my wife calls, tell her I'll see her at home. In my office, I immediately called Derek. They're getting nervous, he said when I told him about the call. Your wife must have said something. Or they're monitoring her in some way, I suggested. Either way, things are moving faster than I expected. You need to be careful, Matthews. If they think you're a threat, they might not stick to legal methods of dealing with you. I looked out my window at the Chicago skyline, the late afternoon sun gilding the buildings. Let them try. I've got nothing left to lose. As I hung up, I noticed a small package on my desk that hadn't been there earlier. No shipping label, just my name written in block letters. I carefully opened it to find a flash drive and a note. Insurance policy, use if needed. D. I plugged the drive into my laptop. It contained dozens of photos and documents, all evidence of Westbrook's corporate espionage operation, not just with Sarah, but with informants at other companies. Derek had been busy. This was exactly what I needed. Leverage against Westbrook. separate from my personal situation with Sarah. Now I could protect myself and the company without necessarily destroying my wife in the process. Unless, of course, that's what I wanted to do. I arrived home at 7:55, pulling into our driveway behind Sarah's car. The house was lit up like Christmas, every light blazing as if to ward off the growing darkness. Sarah met me at the door, perfectly put together in a black dress I'd never seen before, hair and makeup flawless. The Sarah armor, I called it privately, what she wore when she needed to feel powerful. "I did everything you asked," she said immediately. "I ended it with Westbrook. I've documented everything. The money's been transferred." I nodded, stepping past her into the house. "Show me." In the dining room, she'd laid out folders in neat rows on the table we usually only used for dinner parties. Each was labeled meticulously. Dates, types of information, contact names. 15 years as a lawyer had made her nothing if not organized. "The account information is here," she said, handing me a banking app on her tablet. The balance showed $2,937,500 in a new account, opened that morning. "And Westbrook?" Sarah's composure faltered slightly. "They weren't happy. The man I deal with, James Harrington, he threatened me. Said I was making a serious mistake." "Did he mention me?" She nodded reluctantly. "He said they knew you were aware of the arrangement. That's why they called your office." I sat down, digesting this. "They're bluffing. If they knew for certain, they wouldn't have bothered calling." "What happens now?" Sarah asked, sitting across from me. I looked at her, really looked at her. Behind the perfect makeup and controlled expression, she looked afraid. For the first time since this began, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. Let her be afraid. Let her feel what I'd been feeling. "Now," I said, "I tell you my terms." I laid it out for her. She would resign from her firm immediately, citing personal reasons. She would sign a detailed confession about her dealings with Westbrook, which would remain in my possession unless she violated our agreement. She would agree to a divorce on my terms, making no claims on our joint assets. And she would leave Chicago, leave Illinois entirely, within 30 days. "You're destroying my career," she said, voice shaking. "My whole life." "No, Sarah, you did that. I'm just making sure you don't take me down with you. And if I refuse?" I slid my phone across the table. On it was an email, addressed to the managing partners of her firm, the CEO of Harmon Healthcare, and the FBI's Corporate Crime Division. Attached were copies of the bank statements Derek had given me. "One button," I said. "That's all it takes." She stared at the phone, then at me, her eyes filling with tears. Not of sadness, I realized, but of rage. "I never thought you could be this cold. I learned from the best." We sat in silence, the weight of 15 years and countless lies pressing down between us. Finally, Sarah reached for the phone and slid it back to me. "I'll do it," she said, "but not because you're threatening me, because I know what I did was wrong, and you deserve better." I almost laughed. Even now she was trying to control the narrative. "You'll do it because you have no choice, and spare me the sudden attack of conscience. You know, Ryan," she said, standing up, "for someone who claims to be the victim here, you're enjoying this power a little too much." I stood as well, gathering the folders. "I'll have the divorce papers drawn up tomorrow. Pack whatever you need for a few days. I want you out of the house by morning." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore," I said, heading for the door. "You have $2.5 million. Figure it out." James Harrington was exactly what I expected. Mid-50s, silver-haired, with the overly fit look of a man who paid a small fortune to appear younger than his age. His corner office at Westbrook's downtown location overlooked Millennium Park, the giant reflective bean sculpture visible in the fading light. "Mr. Matthews," he said smoothly when his assistant showed me in, "this is an unexpected pleasure. I was just thinking about you." "I bet you were," I replied, declining his gesture toward a chair. "I prefer to stand. This won't take long." Harrington's smile didn't waver. "As you wish. What can I do for you?" "You can explain why you're planning to frame me for your corporate espionage operation." His eyebrows rose slightly, the only indication I'd surprised him. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have evidence of this alleged plan?" I smiled. "Not yet, but I will by morning." "Is that a threat, Mr. Matthews?" "It's a promise." I stepped closer to his desk. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to drop whatever scheme you're concocting. You're going to admit to Harmon that Westbrook approached my wife without my knowledge. And you're going to agree to the settlement terms my firm is preparing." Harrington leaned back in his chair, studying me. And why would I do any of that? I pulled out my phone and played a short audio clip. Sarah's voice, crystal clear. James Harrington approached me at a charity gala in 2019. He said they'd been watching my husband's work with Harmon and wanted inside information. I stopped the recording. My wife may be many things, but disorganized isn't one of them. She recorded everything, Harrington. Every meeting, every phone call. Insurance, she called it. It was a bluff, or at least a partial one. Sarah had indeed kept records, but nothing as damning as audio recordings. The voice on my phone was actually from the security firm, using voice cloning technology based on samples from videos of Sarah at legal conferences. Unethical? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. Harrington's expression hardened. Those recordings would be inadmissible, made without consent. In court, sure, I agreed. But in the court of public opinion? In front of Harmon's board? In front of your shareholders? They'll be devastating. What I didn't mention was Derek's flash drive. The photos showing Harrington meeting with informants from multiple companies. The paper trail of payments. The emails outlining exactly what information he wanted and how much it was worth. Even if he called my bluff on Sarah's recordings, I had enough to bury him. I could almost see the calculations running behind his eyes, weighing risks and rewards. Finally, he said, "What exactly do you want?" I told you, drop the frame job, tell the truth about approaching Sarah, agree to the settlement, and the recordings. Stay with me, as insurance. Harrington stood up slowly, walking to the window. Your wife was a valuable asset, you know. She has a natural talent for this kind of work. She's not my wife anymore, I said. And flattery doesn't change the fact that you both broke the law. He turned back to me. You could have joined us, Matthews. We could have made you very wealthy. I already have everything I need. Harrington laughed, a short, humorless sound. Do you? Your marriage is over. Your reputation, even if you avoid blame, will never be the same. Was principle really worth it? I moved toward the door. Unlike you, Harrington, I can still look at myself in the mirror. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to make your decision. After that, the recordings go to everyone. Harmon, your board, the press. Hell, I might even post them on LinkedIn. As I reached for the door handle, he called after me. She never loved you, you know. Sarah, she told me that. Said you were just convenient. I paused, his words landing like a physical blow. Then I turned back, smiling. Nice try, but I stopped caring what Sarah thinks the moment I realized who she really is. It wasn't true, not entirely, but I'd be damned if I'd give Harrington the satisfaction of seeing it. By 8:30 the next morning, I was in the managing partner's office, along with Marcus and the rest of our crisis team. At precisely 9 a.m., the phone rang. Harmon's CEO calling to inform us that Westbrook had reached out to him directly, admitting to soliciting information from an attorney at Sarah's firm and offering a substantial settlement. He specifically mentioned that you were not involved, Ryan, the managing partner said after hanging up. Said Westbrook wanted to make that clear. The relief in the room was palpable. Crisis averted, reputations preserved, client relationships salvaged. Everyone congratulated me on my handling of the situation, praising my loyalty and quick thinking. If only they knew how close I'd come to losing everything. As the meeting broke up, Marcus pulled me aside. I don't know exactly what you did, but whatever it was, it worked. The partners are impressed. I shrugged. Just protecting the company. And yourself, he added knowingly. Don't forget, I've seen the divorce filing. Your wife doesn't come out looking good. Ex-wife, I corrected. And no, she doesn't. 3 weeks later, I stood in my empty bedroom, surveying the spaces where Sarah's things had been. The divorce was proceeding smoothly, her attorney offering no resistance to my terms. The final settlement with Westbrook had been signed, with additional clauses preventing them from ever approaching Wilson and Hayes employees or their families again. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. She's leaving town today, thought you should know. I hadn't spoken to Sarah since the night I'd laid out my terms. All communication had been through lawyers. I'd heard she'd taken an extended vacation somewhere tropical while looking for positions out of state. The legal community was small, and rumors about her sudden departure from the firm had already started circulating. Her career, if not over, was certainly damaged. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. The doorbell rang, startling me. When I opened it, Sarah stood there, looking different than I'd ever seen her. Dressed casually in jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Vulnerable. "Can I come in?" she asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked into the foyer, gazing around as if seeing the house for the first time. "I'm leaving for Arizona today," she said. "Fresh start." "Good for you," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Is there something you needed?" Sarah turned to face me. "I wanted to say goodbye, and I'm sorry, not for getting caught, but for what I did. To you, to us. It's a little late for that. I know," she sighed. "You asked me once why I didn't just divorce you if I was unhappy. The truth is, I wasn't unhappy, Ryan. That wasn't a lie. Then why?" "Because I was bored," she admitted. "Because the money was exciting. Because I convinced myself no one was really getting hurt." She laughed bitterly. Stupid reasons that seemed important at the time. I leaned against the wall, suddenly tired. "What do you want from me, Sarah? Forgiveness? Understanding?" "No. I just wanted you to know that despite everything, what we had was real. At least for me." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. "And I wanted to return this. It never felt right keeping it." She handed me the box. Inside was her engagement ring, a modest diamond I'd saved for months to buy when we were still in college, before promotions and bonuses and the life we'd built. "You could have sold it," I said. "God knows you gave back everything else. Some things shouldn't be sold." She stepped toward the door. "Goodbye, Ryan." As she reached for the handle, I found myself asking, "Was it worth it? All of this?" Sarah paused, looking back at me with genuine regret in her eyes. "Nothing is worth losing someone who truly loves you." I learned that too late. After she left, I sat on the stairs, turning the ring box over in my hands. Outside, I heard a car start and drive away. Sarah was gone, taking with her 15 years of memories, both genuine and false. I thought about Harrington's parting shot, that Sarah had never loved me, that I'd just been convenient. Whether it was true or not didn't really matter anymore. What mattered was what came next. I put the ring box in my pocket and went to my office. On my desk was a map of the United States, routes marked in red pen, the road trip I'd been planning before everything fell apart. I'd always wanted to see the country, to drive the open highways and explore places I'd only read about. Sarah had never been interested, always too busy with work or preferring luxury resorts to road trips. Now there was nothing holding me back. I picked up my phone and called the office. "Marcus, it's Ryan. I'm taking that sabbatical we discussed, starting Monday." I paused, looking at the map. "No, I'm not sure exactly how long. I'll stay in touch." After hanging up, I pulled up the website for a car rental company. Not just any car, a convertible. Something impractical and fun, and completely unlike the sensible sedan I'd driven for years. As I confirmed the reservation, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Anticipation. Not just for the trip, but for whatever came after. The life I thought I knew had been a carefully constructed illusion, but its collapse had freed me in ways I was only beginning to understand. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I opened the windows, letting the spring air fill the house. Tomorrow I would start packing. Tonight I would drink a beer on the porch and watch the stars come out. The road was waiting.
The moral of the story is that true character is revealed not when life is picture perfect, but when the facade shatters. It highlights the destructive nature of greed and deceit, showing that even those closest to us can hide unimaginable, dangerous secrets. However, it also serves as a powerful testament to human resilience and intellect. When faced with profound betrayal, Ryan chose strategic composure over emotional self-destruction. The story proves that no matter how deeply you are deceived, you can reclaim your power, outsmart your abusers, and build a free, authentic life from the ruins of a false one.